Hello everybody and welcome back to the finale of the autumn series for Wales. Wales take on the Wallabies in Cardiff on Saturday evening. And in this video, Brandon and I are going to go through both the teams that were announced earlier today, a couple of players to watch out for, and as always, our predictions for the game. But firstly, I'm going to introduce my co-host. He's been with me through all four of them now. Brandon, how are you doing, buddy?
Yeah, really good. Looking forward to this game. Should be a good one. There's a lot of classic matches, a lot of heartbreak between these two sides. And of course, they're in our World Cup pool for a couple of years' time. So looking forward to this chat.
Yeah, and we've got to see it as an opportunity, World Cup preliminary round then, if you want to call it that. We had the first run against Fiji on Sunday where we just came through. I wouldn't say unscathed, but we made it through in the end. But history is on our side against Australia. The last few times they've been to Cardiff, they've walked away with nothing whatsoever. And as you quite importantly mentioned, that 2019 clash at Rugby World Cup in Japan was a victory for Wales. And that was a really, really interesting game. It was a mixture of sort of tactical play, wide play, and all different things thrown in between. But we're here. It's 2021, the finale of the autumn series. Let's have a look at the teams and let's see where this game's going to go. So starting with the Welsh lineup, Wyn Jones is recalled to loose head prop alongside Ryan Elias and Thomas Francis. In the second row, unfortunately, Will Rowlands released back to his club, the Dragons, with an injury. So he is replaced in the second row by Seb Davis and he partners up with Adam Beard. The back row is Ellis Jenkins, again captain in the side from 6. Tane Basham moves back across to 7, with Aaron Wainwright moving back into 8 after passing his fitness test. The halfback pairing sees Thomas Williams come back to claim that number 9 jersey alongside Dan Biggar at fly half. It's a new centre partnership again, with Halaholo stepping into the 12 jersey alongside Nick Tompkins, and a partnership that we're all very excited to see, which leaves a back three of Josh Adams, who unfortunately missed out against Fiji, but he's back after passing his fitness test, alongside Louis Rees-Zammit and Liam Williams, the player of the match from the game last Sunday. That leaves replacements of Elliot Dee, who's back from injury after playing in a Dragons development game last Friday night. He's on the bench alongside Gareth Thomas of the Ospreys, Dylan Lewis, Ben Carter, Chris Shunza, who had his debut last week, and for me, he made a big impact. Gareth Davis, Rhys Priestland, and Johnny McNichol make up the 23. Lots of players coming back, mate. Lots of players shuffling around. What were the big takeaways from that team announcement you saw this afternoon?
It's a very interesting team, isn't it? There's a lot of new partnerships that are going to be taking place on Saturday. A lot of players who probably will never have played together. You look at the lock, you look at the centre partnership, you look at players coming back in who haven't played for a few games, players on the bench. It's an interesting team. I'm still trying to work out how this team's going to click and what's going to be the way we're going to approach this game, how we're going to play. We'll get on to Australia later on, but I haven't been all that impressed by Australia, and I think that we should be targeting this game. Really happy to see, I mentioned to you before we started recording, Rhys Priestland back on the bench. He was out with a knock for the past 2 games, but I thought he really impressed when he came on against the All Blacks at the start of this autumn. So on the whole, I'm pretty happy with the squad. Really happy with the back row of Wainwright, Basham and Ellis Jenkins. I think they've been our 3-star performers when they've played this autumn, and I think that's a really exciting back row, especially with the likes of Navidi, Tipuric and Faletau out injured. It just shows we have top class players who are willing to step into that role. And I think Tane Basham especially has just grown as a player, shown that he's capable to play at the international stage, and that's going to give him massive confidence going into the fixtures over Christmas with the Dragons and then hopefully into next year's Six Nations. So pretty happy. And I think it's as we expected with all the injuries we've got.
Yeah, I think I was the same. This is probably the most pleasing side I've seen because, obviously Halaholo was out. He contracted COVID just before the New Zealand game, which put him out for the first 2 autumn games. Saw him come back off the bench against Fiji as a last-minute call-up after Josh Adams pulling out. But I think he's one of the players that we were hoping to sort of build our attack around moving forward. And we were without him for the first few games. So it's good to see him back involved. Liam Williams retaining the 15 jersey because I think he looked as safe as houses under the high ball on the weekend. For me, though, and the first question I want to ask you about this Welsh side, what's going on at 10 for Wales? Now, Pivac said right at the start of the autumn series that he was going to interchange. He was going to try different combinations, different players in different positions. Obviously, the first game, we were very, very limited against New Zealand. We only had Priestland and Anscombe available for selection. But then from the South African game on, we had Sheedy and Bigger come back into the fold. My question to you, mate, what's going on at 10? Because it seems like 1 minute that Sheedy's the flavour of the month. Now it seems that, he only had a couple of minutes off the bench Saturday, which I thought he played quite well when he came on and he looked quite sharp. What is going on at 10 and why do you think that Pivac is interchanging one of the key positions so often?
I'm going to be brutally honest. I said at the start I wasn't going to be brutally honest, but I think I'm going to be. I think Pivac's struggling with the identity of this team. I think he's really struggling to know how this team should go out and play. He clearly wants to play an attacking style of rugby. And he wants to play the way that he played at the Scarlets, which is lovely to watch. And when it works, it's incredible. But for whatever reason, it's not clicking at this minute. And so whether he's concerned about the pressure he may be under from, I'm not saying from the Welsh Rugby Union, but maybe from fans, maybe from the media, Dan Biggar probably is the safest pair of hands, defensively, certainly. I do think he's improved his game going forward as well in the attacking sense. He's good under the high ball. But yeah, we believe that when Anscombe was coming through and was picked by Gatland for that 2019 Rugby World Cup before his injury, the plan was that Anscombe would be starting games and Biggar would come off the bench to close the game out. But obviously with Anscombe's injury, that didn't work. Sheedy, what's he done wrong? Bristol haven't had the greatest year, but whenever he's played for us, he's always made an impact. And he gets 2 minutes against Fiji, which seems a little bit harsh. You still got players like Jared Evans who could come back into this squad after his injury. Priestland, we know he was out injured for those 2 games, so at least that makes some sense to me. I still think he's trying to work out what his best 15 is. I don't think injuries help, but I do think we struggle with an identity, and I think it's important that he works it out pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think, like you said, if we're looking playing against one of the biggest teams, you imagine we take this as a cup match, or you put us in that pool stage in the World Cup. I think he's always going to choose Biggar at 10. I think tactically he's probably the most knowledgeable, knows where to play the game and knows when to play it. Even though he did show at times on Saturday a few little moments of indecisiveness, which in one case cost us a try. Priestland, I'm more than happy to see him back involved in the side. Since seeing him arrive at Cardiff Rugby at the start of the season, he's really made an impact there. He's got that leadership role. He's come back from his time at Bath where he would have learned so much. He's come back to Cardiff now, and he's starting to implement areas of that, not only within his own game, but implementing it within the setup of Cardiff Rugby. He's got Jared Evans to support coming through as well. But for me, it's like what you said, it's a bit confused. These players, like, for example, Sheedy, he comes out of Bristol camp, comes into the Welsh camp, hoping to push. He was our replacement 10, even got a start in the Six Nations, and now he can't get in there whatsoever for Priestland, who, let's be honest, within the next 3 or 4 years, isn't going to be an option for Wales at all. So I don't understand that. Is it a panic thing for Pivac that he needs a win and he's going with his strongest positions in the key areas? I don't know. But this Australian side are not coming here to mess around. And we're going to have a look at the team they've selected now. But they've come off the back of 2 losses against Scotland and England. So they're going to be coming down to Cardiff really hurt by those 2 results. And they're going to be looking to pick up a win against us. So let's take a look at that Australian side that'll take the field on Saturday. So captain in the side from Loosehead Prop, we've got James Slipper alongside Tololatu and Taniela Tupou. In the second row, the towering figure of Rory Arnold alongside Isaac Rodder. Leaving a back row of Rob Leota with quite potentially the worst mullet in rugby at the moment, which there's quite a few going around. Pete Samu and Rob Valentini. It's a battle of the moustaches at 9. Nick White, Nick White starts at 9 alongside James O'Connor, who we'll talk about in just a second. In the centres, you've got the recognised pairing now of Hunter Paisami and Len Ikitau, leaving wingers of Filippo Daugunu, Andrew Kellaway, who had a fantastic year, and for my liking, he should have been on the should be receiving the Breakthrough Award just for the impact he's had this year for Australia. And that man at 15, Curtly Beale, coming back to Cardiff to break Welsh hearts once again. Leaving a bench of Folo Fainga, Angus Bell, Alan Alatoa, Will Skelton, Lockie Swinton, Tate McDermott, Lalakai Foketi, who, if he gets on, will make his first appearance, and Tom Wright finishing up the 23. He's there again, mate. Curtly Beale's coming to Cardiff and he's going to spoil the party. No, but in all seriousness, they've played 2 big games now, a really close encounter against Scotland, a game in which they were in the hunt for quite a long time against England, and now they come down to Cardiff with this team. What do you take from that Australian side that's been named today?
It's an interesting team. It's certainly not their strongest side. So we have to mention Michael Hooper, who would usually captain the side, one of the best jacklers of the ball in world rugby. He's out injured. Quade Cooper and Samu Karevi are both in Japan. It's their pre-season. Samu Karevi nominated for World Player of the Year. He's been phenomenal. Quade Cooper came out of like hibernation or something to come and play for Australia when he came back in, and he was phenomenal for them over the Rugby Championship. But he's not travelled, but it's a good side, and they're getting more settled. As you said, the centre partnership is pretty locked in now. You look at the 9 and 10, especially Nick White. I'm a big fan of his. We'll talk about James O'Connor in a bit. You look at the pack, Rory Arnold and Isaac Roda are very cemented now together as a team. Rob Valentini's a fantastic 8, very powerful, good with ball in hand. On the whole, it's a good side. It wouldn't be who they'd want to pick. It wouldn't be their strongest side. But when you got Curtly Beale in the team, anything can happen in the far right corner of the pitch 78 minutes into the game. So we'll have to be careful. We'll have to give them the respect that they deserve. But it's certainly not their strongest side, and there are elements of weakness there.
No, and I think I agree with you. I think the big thing, obviously, Michael Hooper's involvement would have been enormous in this game. He and I've seen through so many videos analysing the Wallaby revival over the last few months, and and Dave Rennie, he's done a really good job with Australia. He's brought so many new players into the fold. I think he gave 16 new caps out in the last calendar year. So he's preparing this side long term. Even still, he's bringing back a couple of the old faces, just to sort of steer the ship, bring that experience, bring that level of quality that you need at international level to win matches. We've said it a couple of times, we're going to mention it. James O'Connor at 10. Now, he's had 2 outings, one against Scotland and one against England. How have you rated James O'Connor as a 10 on this European tour so far?
Oh, I don't want to be too harsh on the guy, but no, it hasn't clicked for him for whatever reason. I think it's very difficult to come in and replace someone who plays at 10 because it's so integral to the way that you play. Again, it's a new pairing with Nick White, where Quade Cooper and Nick White had worked really, really well together. James O'Connor, for me, isn't a 10. He's not a 10 for me, especially at the international level. It doesn't seem to have that ability to connect the play, to get the team going, to dictate things from 10, which is really important. And I watched the game with them against Scotland, and I actually watched the one against England. He kicked very well, but didn't do much else. And so I wonder how much control will he have of this game, or will it be Nick White dictating things more from 9? That's what I would expect to happen. But it's very strange with Australia. They seem to be going through this phase where they're bringing back old players. They don't have someone to come and step in, some young player to come in and step in at 10 for them. I think he is a big weakness for them. And he certainly won't be thrown out there behind the back passes that Quade Cooper loves to throw out. But yeah, I think he's someone that we can definitely target, put pressure on him, make him make a decision quickly. Don't give him time to look up. Let's hit him hard. Get Halaholo to hit him or something like that. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I think he's he's the thing that Rennie is banking on, to connect the play. Because if you look, not only, in terms of a Welsh level, but if you look across the way that other teams have been playing in this international period so far, that first player that you've got is your ball player, obviously. We saw Sexton do a superb job at 10 for Ireland last week, really got the play moving for them. You looked at France on Sunday against Georgia. They've adopted the dual playmaker. They've gone back to just 110 on Saturday against the All Blacks, but they've been playing Ntamack and Jalibert in the same side. So Australia don't have that. I think that Paisami and Ikitau are both players that like to come really flat and try and break the line early on, but then they're not really the sort of players you want distributing the ball in the way in which the Australia like to. They like to get the ball out to their wingers. Kellaway will be itching to have a go against this Welsh defence, which Fiji managed to breach on many occasions on Sunday afternoon. But it is a little bit like with Wales. They've got their injuries, they've got players that are unable to come over due to travel and what have you. But it seems like he's sticking faith in these players that he knows can do a job. And we'll go on to talk about a few in just a second. But these players have been selected for a reason. That pack is an extremely well-established pack. But it's where Wales can target this Australian team on Saturday, because, and I'll be quite honest, I think we are, on paper anyway, second best in terms of our pack. So we're going to be in a hell of a dogfight in terms of that. But I think we can gain parity out wide. And I think if we play the game sensibly, we've got really good potential to break this Australian side down. But we've got to be on the money, because Australia have star-studded players throughout this team. And we're going to talk about a couple now in our players to watch for this week. So as always, pick out two players from each side and just see how they might have an influence on the game. So we're going to start with Australia, and the first man, I love watching this guy play, is Taniela Tupou, the Tongan Thor. What a season he has had for New Zealand, for Australia even, sorry. Comes in and out of the starting side quite often. Sometimes he makes the impact off the bench. But more often than not this season, he's been that starting tight head for the Aussies. His scrummaging has improved tenfold, but where his biggest strengths lie are around the field. His offloading ability, his carrying ability, up there for me is one of the best in the world. So how do you think a player like this could really cause Wales trouble on Saturday afternoon, Brandon?
As you said, his biggest strengths are for sure his ability around the field. You get the ball in hand and he's comfortable with playing it out, something that the Pacific nations are well known for, their comfortability with ball in hand. And he certainly has that. He's also a big ball carrier, and he's not slow. He's not slow either. He can certainly get around the field. And I think, the thing for Australia is if they can make those breaks, if he can get through our defensive line, if he can get over the gain line, then he has that ability. If Nick White is on his side, if Kellaway comes inside, he's got those options. Then he knows he can play that offload. Something that we are certainly working on, but we're not quite at that level yet to be very comfortable in doing that. But we have to be really wary of him. If he can get that just over the gain line, just get one hand free, and as any good scrum half should do, Nick White will give him a good support line. We could be in a lot of trouble, because I feel like our transition from defence into attack is really slow. And I think we saw that against Fiji. Yes, Australia aren't going to play the way Fiji played to the extent, but they are a team that like to throw the ball about. They like to be very attacking. So we're going to have to be really wary of him. And as you said, his scrummaging has got a lot better. And our scrum this autumn has not been great. So it's going to be interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest things where you point out then in terms of the scrum, Wales have had a lot of problems there. And I think with the experience of James Slipper, well over 100 caps now, and Taniela Tupou on the other side of the scrum, I think that is an area they will really try and target. And I said, I think they are probably the better side on paper in terms of their packs. That's one of the big areas they'll be looking to gain parity. They pushed England all the way on Saturday. It was a real sort of back and forth affair against Scotland in terms of the scrimmaging. So it'll be interesting to see whether Wales can hold their own. I don't think Wales can look to dominate, but I think if we just hold our own, because our strengths lie in other areas of the field, whereas they'll be looking, at every possible opportunity to get those penalties, to get that field position, to really start to push forward and to put Wales under pressure come Saturday afternoon. And if they can put that pressure on, they've got players all across the field that can finish things off for them. They are very talented in the way that they finish tries. I think against South Africa, Taniela Tupou involved in one of the tries, with the out-the-backdoor pass to Corabetti, another player who hasn't come over this year, this autumn. But there's one guy we got to talk about. He's coming back to Cardiff. He broke Brandon's heart back in 2012, I think it was. He's back in Cardiff, mate. Kurtley Beale. This man is, well, he just seems to just always be there. He's doing his thing at the minute out in Racing and really sort of established himself within that team now, a very creative side with the likes of Finn Russell in that backline as well. Just how scared are you to see this man pull on the 15 jersey on Saturday, mate?
It's just, it's inevitable, isn't it? We're going well. We're having a good game. It gets a bit close near the end. 78 minutes, he dives in the corner. He's just inevitable. I'm sure he's done it a couple of times. But no, he's a really interesting player. Going forward, fantastic option and very, very experienced. He's such a utility player. He could probably play anywhere in the back line apart from scrum half, to be honest. And he's someone that, is reliable, really, for the Aussies. I do think he can be gotten at defensively, but he just has this thing that whenever he plays against us, he seems to score. And he's a good runner. He's a very good runner. And I think we will look to target him in the air. I do think that's a potential weakness that we can certainly target with him. But just history repeats itself sometimes, doesn't it? Let's hope it's not the case, but we have to be wary of him. Probably not at his prime anymore, and probably is playing a bit all over the place, but he does have that brilliant step and that ability to finish chances as well. So, that back three, especially Kellaway, what a year he's had. You look at his stats, he's up there, some of the best in the world, and in the Rugby Championship, he's top of pretty much every aspect, really. So, we have to be very wary of that back three. We can't kick loosely to them, which we did against Fiji, which sounds bonkers, but we did.
Yeah, I think the one thing that Kurtley Beale is going to bring with him is that unpredictability, that I think early on he will look, to carry on the kick tennis that we've seen. He'll play a lot of the high balls back, try and put pressure on the Welsh back three as well. But the one thing that he'll bring, at the click of a fingers, if he can spot an opportunity, he'll come up into the attacking line, no problem whatsoever. Kellaway's played a couple of tests at fullback. He's more than happy to step in off that wing, cover that fullback position just in case of a turnover. But he will come up and he will look to exploit the Welsh. And I think it was I think it was 2016 when Australia came, or 2017. Kurtley Beale was everywhere for the first half an hour, and I think he'll look to do the same again. Lacking a little bit creatively at the moment, Australia, and I think that's something that they'll look to address against us, which, always spells out trouble. But I think he has got that ability to break a game, and especially if it gets loose, I think he will exploit Wales in those open spaces, no problem whatsoever. But it's whether he can be that man for Australia, that, right, give the ball to me, I'll make the yards, I'll make the line break, and I'll inspire this side, because we're coming off the back of 2 losses. We need something to get us going. And I think Kurtley Beale could be the man to do that. But looking at Wales, where's this spark going to come from? Where is that impetus going to come from to attack? And I think the first player that I think is probably our main source of attack at the moment is going to be Thomas Williams. Now, came off the bench against Fiji, gave Kieran Hardy a chance, and I think we all saw the difference when Thomas Williams came on. The game started to move a lot more freely. The opportunities started to become a little bit more visible, and he was more than happy to exploit them. But we're going to look at Thomas Williams in a slightly different aspect first, because I think from my perspective, Brandon, and I know when I watched your analysis video, one area the Wales have fallen flat in all 3 games in the autumn so far is our ball retention. Thomas Williams is only as good as the player he's got around him. If he's having to dig for the ball in rucks, if he's having to try and fight off jacklers, he's never going to get at that ball, and he's never going to be given an opportunity to get his backline moving. I've just found 2 examples from the game, and I literally had to look for the first 6 minutes of the game, or first 7 minutes to find it. First option here, Man goes to the ground there. Look at the body position in there. It's so easy for that Fijian defender to get in on the ball and try and get that turnover, and ultimately gave away a penalty for holding on. And the second instance here, that body position is so easy for the Fijians to get in and over the ball. Kieran Hardy arrives too late. At that point, you can see the ball has already been wrapped up by the Fijian jackler, and that opportunity to attack is gone. So if we can get that clean ball, if we can present it nice and cleanly for Thomas Williams, put it on a plate for him, just how big of an impact do you think he could have on this game Saturday?
I think it's just a very well-known fact, isn't it, that if you get a quick ball, you tend to win games of rugby, because the simple fact is, if you make a line break, you get tackled. If you take forever to get the ball out, the defence resets, and so it's pointless. That line break is completely pointless. That ball needs to be presented properly. You're taught as a child, you get the ball and you put it as far away from your body as you can. You place back one hand maybe on it or something like that. And you ensure that it's there for the scrum half to get. And I think Thomas Williams naturally likes to get the ball out quicker. He also likes those sniping runs. And he's phenomenal at giving support lines and support options to the player who makes the breakthrough for us. So I think he's going to be really important. I think him and Big are building a really nice partnership together. I really like that partnership. And I think Thomas Williams is the number one scrum half. So I think it's going to be really important. He needs to set the tempo of the game the way we want to play. We have to learn to dictate games more and play it at our pace. We saw that with Ireland against the All Blacks. They played their game their way at their pace. They dictated absolutely everything, and that's what we need to do. We can't allow teams to get comfortable and feel like, oh, do you know what, it's all right here, we can play the way we want. They're not putting pressure on us, they're not implementing their style, they're not dominating us in any facet of the game. We need to ensure that we do that. If that's going to the driving maul again, if that's us deciding, right, we're going to play the kicking game, if that's us going with the blitz defense, whatever it is, we've got to dominate. And I think Thomas Williams is really important to the tempo, to the way we want to play. So I'm really excited to see him play and hopefully dance around James Slipper a bit, or the other front row forwards.
Yeah, and I think a battle of between him and Nick White is going to be absolutely key as well. Nick White did absolutely everything he could to get under the English players' skin on Saturday night. And I think that's something he'll look to do again against the Welsh players. They'll have to stay level-headed, and they'll have to make sure that they know he's going to do it. So just make sure that they're wise to it. But if we can get that quick ball and we can try and spot those opportunities, there's nobody I would rather have on this pitch. I've said his name a few times already, but Willis Halaholo, coming in for his first start of the autumn, unfortunately missed the first couple of games due to COVID. Sorry, not injury. I've read some really inspiring articles about this man over this week, about how 2020 he suffered an injury and he was almost tempted to walk away from the game. He was done with rugby, but his centre partner down at Cardiff Rugby, Ray Lilo, sort of put an arm around him and pushed him through his rehab phase then to make sure that he was back, because he can see the potential this guy has, and he's starting what is going to be hopefully a really promising few years in a Welsh jersey for him. But just how key is it that we've now got a midfielder who can break a game at the click of a fingers, a sidestep, spotting an opportunity? Just how key is it to have someone like that in our ranks, Brandon?
He's massively important. It's a well-known secret that we're struggling for centres in Wales, that there are players, I'm not going to name names, but there are players who are really struggling for form in the centre who are not involved. There were players who are out injured. So George North, who had played very well at the centre for us, is out injured. Hadley Parks went off to Japan. Different issues around the centre. But Halaholo, whenever I've seen him play, always puts in a really good performance. And what I like about him, yes, he has the sidestep. Yes, he can break the first tackle. But he does the simple things really, really well. For the try that Louis Rees-Zammit scored against Scotland, it's a perfectly placed pass from Halaholo to Louis Rees-Zammit. If he plays that a yard behind him, a yard too quick, whatever it is, it's perfectly placed. He draws in the defender and releases it at the exact moment so that Louis Rees-Zammit has that extra yard to get away from Hogg, I think it is. So he's very clever, but as you said, the sidestep that he's got defensively, he's pretty solid. He's a big guy. He'll get through those tackles. And I think that going forward, I'd be very happy to see him playing regularly at 12. with maybe a North outside of him, or Jonathan Davis, or you can move Tompkins out there, whoever it is. I think he does a job for us for sure. And as you said, he's been through so much over the last couple of years. You know, he had that injury where he was just about to be called up to the Wales squad. Got a lot of hate messages at the time about it, but, you know, he's come back stronger. And he's now, it sounds strange, but he'll be one of the senior guys in the squad on Saturday, because, you know, he's been around for a while. He's been in the Wales camp for a while now as well. So excited to see what he can do, and I think he'll be really important for us.
Yeah, I think everything you've said there, I couldn't agree with more, you know, and he is just such an amazing talent that we've just got to utilize. I mean, let's look at this simple break that he makes. Well, for him, simple, but let's have a look at it in a little bit more detail from the Fiji game on Sunday. So he's lined up, he's just received the pass from Callum Sheedy. Now, up in front of him, he can see a Fijian defender coming across, and outside him, he becomes the first player in what becomes a 4-on-2. In most instances, players are thinking, right, if I get the ball through the hands, you straighten up, give the pass, I'm going. But this is Halaholo. This is no ordinary inside defender, inside attacker. So he's got two options in front of him. He can either step back through that first defender there, highlighted with the one above his head, and try and attack that space there. Or he can step on the outside of his guy there and try and make that break in the space in between those two defenders numbered for Fiji, and he'll have the support runners outside him. That is the option that he takes. You know, the man hits the deck and Halaholo makes the break. But you can see here, Brandon mentioned it just now, you know, he's got Thomas Williams on his inside shoulder, but he's got those defenders still coming through on the outside, you know, and that's why I think having him at 12 is such a key option for Wales on Saturday afternoon, because if he can pop up in those positions, you know, James O'Connor, send Basham at him, send Seb Davis at him, send someone at James O'Connor, get him out of the game. Get that defence disorganised, and then Halaholo comes into his own. He can spot a gap from the middle of nowhere. He can come off the back of the line out and cause problems and cause havoc. But we've got to get him the ball in the positions that he's going to be the most effective, which is in the loose and when defences are the most disorganised. But I think that is a really exciting potential for us on Saturday. So it comes down to the final part now. For the last time, Brandon, number one, how do you see this game going? And number two, what is your score prediction for Saturday?
I think it's going to be a tight one. I think it's going to be a close game. I think both teams are going to want to play a similar style, and I think we need to be careful how much we go towards the Australian way of playing, because I think they are further in their development than we are, and I think we will get caught out. I think being at home will make a difference. I think having a more solid line out is a big thing. I worry a lot about the scrum. I'm going to say Wales by 3. I'm going to say 23-20. But I wouldn't be surprised if Australia win it. So I'm going to say 23-20 and a really must-needed win. Like, I'm not saying this game is a must-win, but it'd be massive. I think if we lose this, I think you can consider the autumn to be a bit of a failure in a way. So I think, yeah, Wales to win by 3. I don't know if I fully believe that, but I'm saying Wales by 3.
Yeah, you don't sound overly convinced, mate. No, I agree with you. I think it is going to be a tight game, and I think Wales will look to play it in a similar way. I think we can discount the New Zealand game, but I think they'll look to play it in a similar way that they did against Australia, you know, against South Africa. My apologies. I think that we've got an opportunity, though, you know, if we go out there and believe we can actually win the game. You know, you look at Ireland last week. At no point in that game last week did Ireland look like they didn't think they could win that game. Every opportunity they could try and assert dominance over New Zealand, they did. And that's the attitude Wales have to take into this Australia game. You know, they're a wounded Wallaby. They've lost 2 games on the bounce, so they're going to be looking to try and spark something, because they'll be desperate for a win as well. But I think that it's going to be quite a tight game. And if it does come down to sort of the tight exchanges, I feel that, you know, the back row we've got, we can look to seek some turnover ball. I think that with the back line that we've got, we can look to, you know, attack. You know, if Liam Williams comes up like he did against Fiji and he starts looking to interlink with our back line as well as he can, I think we will make opportunities, but it's got to be about the execution, you know. If we're going to go for those 50-22s, we've got to execute them. If we're going to look to make a line break, we've got to make sure there's men on that inside shoulder. And the forwards have got to work harder to make sure that those rucks are nice and clean, so that Thomas Williams has got that ball ready to distribute. I am going to go with Wales. I'm going to go with Wales by 5. And I'm going to say 21-16 to Wales. I'm going to go with that. But that is just our opinions. Please get down into the comments, guys, and let us know where you think this game is going to go. The support throughout the Autumn Series has been truly incredible on both my channel and on Brandon's, where we've linked together and gone through it. So I know from the both of us, just wanted to say a massive thank you to everybody watching this video. But make sure that whilst you're here, if you haven't done so already, head over to Brandon's channel and give him a subscribe. And if you're new to the channel here at Ruck and Roll Rugby, make sure you subscribe as well. The views are going up, the comments are going everywhere, the likes are everywhere. Let's just keep this channel growing stronger and stronger now, guys. We've got a good group of people starting to build together, and we're really excited to see how this game goes on Saturday and how we'll see the rugby calendar unfold as we go forward. But Brandon, thank you very much for joining me, not only for this one, but for the entire Autumn Series. And I hope you enjoy the game Saturday, mate.
Yeah, thanks for having me, mate. And yeah, let's hope we get a win, because the tactical review on Sunday might be interesting. But yeah, excited for this game, and once again, thank you for having me on.
No problem at all, mate. And yeah, make sure you're around on Sunday, guys, because we will go through the game in detail and we will do a tactical review. Either on my channel or Brandon's, we haven't really talked about it yet, but it'll be there somewhere, so make sure you tune in for that. But in the meantime, enjoy the game on the weekend, and we'll see you soon.